recording. We'll do this. Finally doing this.
Oh my god.
No edit, Lana. This one, no edit. No
Mm.
edit. we want people to be able to receive you as you, Rachel, beyond the persona that you have now.
Okay.
Okay. So this is going in. Okay. Hey guys, this is Ferdin from Transmission Wellness. Today I have a friend with me.
I'm Rachel.
Rachel, can you share with people what you do?
Okay, so for the past few years, I've been working on like social media stuff, like basically content creation. But also I think a huge part of who I am and what I do in the past, let's say like 3 years, is figuring out spirituality, right? It's become a huge part of my life, and to be honest with you, ask me like, what is spirituality? I don't even think I have a proper answer for you, but I think it's part of figuring out like my path in this realm of spirituality, because I think it all comes back to figuring out who I am, what I stand for, like my values, just how I see life, right? And just coming back to what truly matters to me. Yeah, so I don't know. I've been working a lot on that these few years in terms of like trying out different modalities. Like it started off with yoga for me actually. I did my YTC in Rishikesh in 2020. So yeah, I am a certified yoga teacher. And then I also delved into exploring like astrology, like shadow readings with you, aura painting. So these are all different things where I feel like I gain like little snippets of insights to who I am. And beneath all the noise and all the conditioning that I've kind of lived through, it's coming home to. It's kind of like a little indicator of where home is to me.
I love that. and I love that we're starting out with the introduction and we're going deep and straight into it already. Because we know what this channel is about also. So just wanted to set like the tone of the conversation. If at any point in time you feel uncomfortable with the topic and you wish to set a healthy boundary to step away from the conversation, we can do that. This show's gonna be like minimal edits as much as possible, just because we want this to be an authentic conversation, but I also want you to feel safe enough to share only the details you wish to. Yeah. So I do have a few questions I wanted to dive into today. Just maybe to start out, how have you been?
That's a very heavy question. I find that whenever people ask me that, I don't really know how to answer, because it's easy to say like, yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah.
But then at the back of your head, you're like asking yourself like, are you really okay? And then you're like, but why am I not okay? You know what I mean?
Maybe to reframe, like how do you feel in your body today? Yeah, perhaps that's a different way to ask.
I think I've been feeling pretty motivated, more energized recently about life in general, about like figuring out, like I'm not as much in a space of I don't know what I'm doing with my life, but rather like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but let's figure it out, you know? Like, so I feel like currently I'm in that space. But of course, that's kind of like the yes, I'm fine bit. But there are also the days where you're like, like I don't really know what I'm doing. So I think it's a combination of like the good days and the bad days, right? But I think overall I feel like I'm pretty happy with where I am, even though I don't have everything figured out. Yeah.
Which is a given, right? Because like at different points in our life we are going through different cycles. And I guess usually when you start feeling motivated, it would be having gone through like a closing off of a certain cycle. So maybe if you could share like a recent revelation that you've had that was kind of like an aha moment for you, if you can think of one, what would it be?
I would say that one of the biggest revelation that I've had recently is actually understanding that when we are supported in the decisions that we make, we can do so much more. We can do so much better. And making decisions from a place of feeling unsupported, from a place where you think that you don't have the support, you are doing your best to survive, right? But I realized that if we were able to reach out, to work through the barriers to communicate, so that we can allow ourselves to receive the support that we need, we might actually make decisions so much better. We can make so much better decisions that brings us to a place in our lives where we can say that we are very happy where we are. We've done really well, but yet we were not alone. Yeah.
It's kind of like taking back your own personal stance of power when it comes to your own relationship with another also, and knowing that you can ask for help and support if you were to find a way to communicate that, right? Yeah, and I think sometimes it can be very tricky for us to find that in all the different interpersonal relationships we have, because the dynamic is different, and it's gonna play out differently depending on how the person might react or respond. That's the nerve-wracking part. That is, I think, like interesting to navigate in each connection that we have. Yeah.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, we try to make the best decision that we can for ourselves. That's all we're trying to do. Honestly, we're just trying to make the best decisions that we can with what we have for ourselves, right? But really when you have the support that you need, the decisions that you make can be that much different, really that much more than what you did.
Would you feel comfortable sharing like the circumstances or situation that brought forth this revelation for you?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's a situation. I think it's a series of situations. I mean, it has been a pretty difficult, I would say, 3 years that I've been through. And during the 3 years, there were a lot of times where I kind of feel like, would I be where I am today, or would I have done what I did if I was supported in my decision making, if I was supported in my journey? Maybe I would have done things very differently if I felt like I was supported. Maybe I would have made an entirely different choice if I knew help and support was around me. But then again, I wouldn't know, right? Because on hindsight, everything, it makes sense. Everything is clear. But at that point in time, making decisions in that moment with what I have, I think it was all made in with the goal to survive, I would say. And I don't have the lessons that I know that I have now. So I guess the first situation that kind of got me, actually the situation that even got me down into the path of spirituality was the fact that about 3 years ago, I got married. But I think, I wouldn't say I think, I know now that it wasn't something that I wanted. But at that point in time, of course it's easy for me to say now that, I didn't want to get married. But back then, when you're in that moment, in that current situation, you don't have the clarity that you have now on hindsight, right? So in that moment when I knew that I was about to get married, I just had this feeling like I didn't want to do it. Like I was so scared. The closer we got to the wedding, the more scared I was, and I didn't know why I felt like that, but I knew that that's not how you're supposed to feel about getting married, right? And this is not how marriage is supposed to be, you know? And I found myself like crying every single day, but I didn't understand why. Like the days leading up to the wedding, I was crying every single day. I didn't know why. I didn't know what I was feeling. But I just knew that it was too late at that point in time. In my mind, it was too late. I can't do anything. There's nothing that I can do except to continue walking down this path, right? Because everything was kind of set in stone. Like invites were sent out, everything was booked, things were paid for. We had a BTO on the way, so it seemed as though like there was no other way out for me than to just take that step and continue walking down that path. And yet, when I did that, it brought me so much pain because, like, as much as I would say now, like, because it's not what I wanted, at that point in time, I couldn't see that with that much clarity. And India, like spirituality, these were things that kind of came into my life during that period of time. And during that period of time, I had the chance and the opportunity to really be by myself. Like, I just flew there and decided that I was going to be alone for a whole entire month to figure all the shit out and to really ask myself for once, like, apart from what everyone else wants from me, apart from the role that I play as a daughter, as a friend, as a partner, as as a person in a Singaporean in this society, apart from all of that that's expected of me, what is it that I want? And I think it was very clear to me what I wanted after kind of being with myself for the whole month, because what I wanted has never changed. And then what I realized was, it's not that I didn't know what I want, it's that I couldn't accept what I wanted because it's not acceptable by everyone around me. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I made the decision to call off the marriage because I didn't have it in me to call off the wedding, right? And I went away, and after a month, and I asked myself, like, I didn't go through all of that just to come back and still make the same decision. And so I told myself, I knew it was going to be hard, but it's not going to be as hard as continuing to make the same mistake of walking down this marriage and this life that I didn't want. And so I made this call all on my own. I didn't tell my family, I didn't tell many friends, and it was extremely difficult, but it was, at that point I find that it was a journey that I had to go down on my own. And I feel like I kept thinking that I have to do this alone, this is on me, this was not something that anybody can help me. And it was very, very difficult. I guess I had moments when I asked myself, like, if I were to talk to my friends and family, would they understand? But then I talked myself out of it because I feel like having them talk to me might sway my decision, and I didn't want to be swayed because I was so certain about what I wanted already. So there is that side of me that's trying to rationalize things and do things in my way because I didn't want anyone else to sway my decision. But also, it was very difficult because I put myself in a position where I isolated myself to make a choice on my own, knowing, I told myself, like, you know what, this is something I have to do, like, whether or not I'm supported, whether or not I have my parents' like support and agreement. like this is something that I'm going to have to see through to the very end, whether or not I have any health principle. And that was what made it so difficult. But I feel like on hindsight, if I were to have spoken up, maybe if I would have gone to my parents earlier, or my family, or even like some friends, if I were to have told them about the conflict that I felt, maybe I wouldn't have had to experience it that I wouldn't have to experience that difficulty, because maybe I wouldn't be carrying all of that on my own. I mean, I guess I just took the position of assuming that nobody was going to understand. And I assumed that without even bringing up the conversation to anyone, without even bringing this conversation up to like my mom, my sister, or my dad. And I mean, of course, now when I speak to them, my dad would say that, if I knew, I would never have let this wedding happen. I would have stopped it from happening. And maybe if he wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have to go through all of that. Maybe I would have gone through it like much more easily. But instead, I chose to struggle on my own. Yeah, and I think it was because I didn't know how to reach out for support.
Tissue. I always tissue.
Yeah.
But I think there's a sense of empowerment when it comes to like making the decision yourself and knowing that you're certain about it also. And it is fucking difficult to have to make such a huge decision after having gone through, of course, back and forth, you would be measuring the pros and cons to the whole situation non-stop. From when you said you were feeling uncertain before the marriage even happened, leading up to it, it's already
there's a lot of problems already that I knew deep down would never be able to resolve. Like that I would never be able to resolve. But you see, that's the thing, when you're in the moment, in the situation, you will talk yourself out of it. You will find all the other reasons to cover up like everything that you feel about why it doesn't work. Because on paper, in reality, everything is working. Like the relationship was moving according to how things were supposed to move. Long-term relationship, like proposed to, like got a BTO, paid deposits, like everything was moving according to the checklist.
Yeah.
The checklist.
Singaporean checklist.
Exactly. So that I find was one of a big, it was a big like pressure that I feel, and especially like seeing that this is what everybody around me was doing. In school, like friends that I called at one time, right? Like even my sister like did that, and it was like so smooth for her and everything. It was exactly what she wanted, and I couldn't see why it shouldn't be what I want. Like I was like, it should be what I want. It's playing out accordingly. Like it's playing out nice. So I kept asking myself, like, if everything was like happening and unfolding accordingly, then why am I feeling like that?
So you're trying to oversee the underlying issues and trying to salvage whatever there is in this connection and relationship by holding on to the tangible aspects that seem to be working out.
So everything else can be like not working, and I would turn a blind eye to it, and I would convince myself, and I would come out with all kinds of like excuses and reasons for the experience that I had in the relationship, for how I was treated, for everything that I went through, and I could tell myself all that, and I could tell myself that like, maybe things would be different than at my wedding. Like maybe I'll feel different. Maybe he will change. Maybe this will not be the life. And maybe like he will grow up. Maybe when we have family, things will be different. But I also now come to learn that we are in the relationship with the person for who they are, not who they can potentially be. Because potentials are limitless, right? And we will always expect them to be better, to be closer towards their full potential. But if we don't see the tangible things in their actions, their behavior, if we don't actually see them working and putting in the effort, then a potential will always be a potential, right?
That's the hard truth lah.
Yeah, and it's something that I learned very much later on. That I was trying to hold on to a relationship for what it could be. Yeah, but not for what it actually is. And I think that was what made it very, very difficult. And a huge part of that was the reason why I think nobody would understand, because I guess I'm the only one in the relationship, right, that would understand this aspect of it. Yeah.
Because you're the one experiencing every bit of it day to day with your partner in your interactions, or you can see the dynamic between you playing out, and you know your own patterns or complexes that might be playing out also, if you were aware enough to pick it up also. Yeah.
I think it wasn't until very much later on, after India and after I made the decision to walk away, that I learned about what I want, about paying attention to my own needs and being aware of my own voice, right? I think before that, for the earlier part of my 20s, I would always choose to focus on all the things that didn't matter, like what I said, if the relationship is generally heading in the right direction, then it should be fine, and I'll leave it alone. If then I have my career, which I wasn't sure where it was going, and I was like, okay, that I should just figure out my career. But then at the same time, the life that I was leading wasn't a life that I wanted. It wasn't me at all. But the thing is, I never thought about me. I never thought about what I wanted, who I am, what I stood for. And at that point of time, I didn't even have a sense of self-identity. All I knew was I'm just this person's girlfriend. That's how I saw myself. And because of that, it made it very difficult to leave the relationship at an earlier stage, even though there were a lot of situations where the reasons were right there for me to call it quits. Even then, when the reason was like slapping me in my face, I couldn't bring myself to walk away, because I thought that all I was this person's girlfriend. I didn't know who else I was. Yeah.
Do you feel like your journey in India with your YTT was like the first step to you finally meeting yourself? Like the whole idea of coming home, right? In yoga or being one with yourself. Do you think that was the first moment that it clicked for you? Like, oh, I do need to figure shit out.
I mean, okay. I think sometime in 2019, I started having my own group of friends for once, because previously all my friends were my partner's friends, right? And because they were my partner's friends, they were never truly my people or my tribe, as I would say, right? I could never have these kind of conversations with them. We never had conversations about growth, about future, about passion, what you want to do in life, and things like that. The conversations were always revolving around hey, let's go eat supper. You want to go Siam, let's go drink, let's go party. It was always that, and I hate that life.
Nothing beyond that, the conversation, usually can talk about issues.
Not to people that you're not on the same frequency with,
True. Okay, right.
Yeah. And I think when I met a bunch of friends in 2019 that I got very close to, this group of friends, especially Naomi, actually you know Naomi, right? So she was the one who really somehow just nudged me in the right direction to explore she made me feel like actually it's not so scary to explore and have fun and figure out who you are, because there's so much more to ourselves that's interesting to find out about. Like there's so much that we don't know, and like isn't it cool to find new things that you love and to try things that are fun, and then like to grow a passion for something. So I, from 2019, that was when I first got a slight like hint of, at least, okay, I would say at least 2019 was when my eyes were like slightly open towards like, okay, I guess I can do things for myself. You know, I don't always have to do things for the relationship. Like I don't have to live for my partner. I don't have to live for the relationship. I don't have to plan my life around his plans. I don't have to plan my life around the relationship. Because you see, every decision I made was for the relationship. Okay, for us to BTO. Okay, for us to get married. Okay, for us to, you know, everything was planned for the relationship. But then if you take that away, what did I plan for myself? I had no idea. There was nothing that was planned for myself. So after I met Mimi in 2019, I decided, don't even talk about like planning, just start doing things for myself, just start exploring, just doing things that I love. I start like trying out a lot of new things, like acting, like yoga and all this kind of stuff. You know, these are things that I'm trying for the first time, just because it's for myself. It's not for anybody else, but it's just for me, right? And then in 2020, when I actually went to India, I think it was an experience that really changed my life, because I think I got the chance to, or at least I think I learned to finally hear that voice inside of me for the first time. And it's funny because I've always described my experience in India as meeting myself. Like I met myself for the first time, and I, for like the first time in my life, chose me instead of choosing someone else. And I thought like that was the biggest takeaway that I had from India, because for as long as I was in Singapore, I was always making decisions for someone else, for like you know, for the sake of someone else, for the relationship, for whatever, for my parents. But in India, I learned what it was like to make a decision for me for the first time. And it was a very like empowering feeling, I feel. And I had the whole month to come to terms with that, to find, you know, find courage, to find acceptance for what I want. And I think that gave me a lot of peace and acceptance, because I'm no longer kind of like trying to talk myself out of it because of other people's like expectation, but rather it's like I know for a fact, 100% certainly, like this is what I want, and I'm very okay with it, and I'm at peace with the choices that I'm about to make.
The part about feeling at peace with your choice and your decision, it's yours.
Yes.
It's yours and for yourself.
Yeah.
Do you think like if you were a lot more certain about who you are as an individual, that connection could have played out differently? Or would it have like maybe would you both be able to like perhaps work out that marriage?
If I were to be honest, if I was certain about who I was, and I have a strong sense of self-identity, I wouldn't even have allowed myself to stay in a relationship for that long. I would have left.
How long were you together for?
6 years.
Oh my god, that's quite a bit of time.
I would have left a long time ago. I would have. But because my sense of identity was etched in the relationship,
Right.
I couldn't get out of it. I couldn't, like in my head, I couldn't get out of it. And there was no growth. There was no sense of empowerment when I was in a relationship, and that left me feeling like this was all I'm gonna have. This is all I have. This is the best thing that will happen to me, you know. And if I was able to grow and love myself better and to really, I mean, it's easy to say like love yourself, right? But what does it even mean? But I mean, if I were to be able, if I had it in me to explore my own identity at a much younger age, I would say, I would have established that sense of stronger like self-confidence and self-assurance, and to know that I can depend on myself and I don't need this, and I will do okay even without this. And if I had that mentality and if I had that mindset back then, there would have been nothing that would have stopped me from leaving the relationship, you know?
Wow. If let's say you can speak to your younger self who was just only starting out in that relationship at that point in time, now with the wisdom that you have, what would you tell her?
Wow. Oh my god, it'll be such a. Do I have 4 days with this self to have a conversation?
Maybe as long as you like, because you can speak to her from the future in her dreams when you time travel.
Wow, there's so much to say. I don't know. I never really thought about it, but
what do you think would be the first thing that could like snap her out of it? Inner child healing.
This is a very difficult question.
She probably didn't feel supported or self-assured enough to go and explore things on her own, and perhaps she needed that bit of encouragement from someone a lot wiser or who would be able to empathize with her in her situation, not tell her just try. Anyway, you're already in a relationship, just try. Which is what people like to keep advising their friends on. You don't just try. Yeah.
Wow, there's a lot. I think one of the most important thing I would say that my younger self needed to hear is that you are better than he lets you believe that you are. Yeah. You are way better than he lets you believe you are. Yeah.
Oh, she would have cried. Like crazy.
I would cry too.
Your younger self will be just like, oh my god. It's a bit like a knock on the head.
Because I think at the age where I was, also like because I was staying in NTU Hall, right? So I was like away from family. So for most of that period, it's kind of like who's the person that you are around with the most. You know, it's just your partner, and it was just my partner and his friends, and none of these people were there to support me or to help me grow, and I felt like at least these people were in my life at least, and I felt like without them I don't have anybody. But you see, like it's because I didn't believe that there would be anything else outside of that life. Because it was all I knew. I couldn't even see anything else outside of it. And so I believed that was all I had, and that was all I was going to have.
Do you have like a close relationship with your family at that point in time? Or was it like cordial and respectful kind of a relationship, which is quite typical in Singapore's context? I would say like parents respect, or siblings then you interact in the ways you do.
I think the way I see like relationships between people right now is so different from how I used to see it. And now I'm able to kind of like take a step back and assess like the relationship and then figure out, okay, how should I position myself in this relationship? How should I come in to play my role in this relationship? But back then it was a lot of feeling like I'm not receiving any support, and then feeling like I'm made to bear the responsibility and burden of things that are not working. But at the same time, it's kind of like, oh, you know, like the feeling of being thrown in the open sea when you say you don't know how to swim and you don't even have floaties, right? Yeah, it's just like, okay, go, like you're on your own. It's that feeling. So you're constantly like, you're wired in a way where you're constantly feeling like you just need to survive, you just need to survive.
Just show up, just
Yes.
keep doing it.
Yes. So I think like the relationship with my parents, even though it wasn't, I mean, I think we have ups and downs, but and back then it was largely more like down than up, right? But like I do see how my parents have supported me in the ways that they define as support, right? Like put me through school, education, like pay for things, like letting me decide on what I want to study because this is my life. Supporting me when I say I want to stay in like hall instead of traveling back and forth. You know, these things, like to them this is them supporting.
Yeah.
But what I've realized now is I'm not supported in decision making, which was what crippled me a lot when I was younger, because I realized I didn't know how to make decisions and I ended up just not making any decisions.
Oh my
And
god.
I'll just be like, it's okay, it's fine, like just forget it, like, you know, and I'll keep going with the flow, going with what everybody sees. And my relationship with my parents was therefore very like passive, right? And then also then my parents split, and because my parents split, there is that disharmony, right? And the separation took place over 4 years, so it was a really long time. And again, I wasn't supported through that. I didn't have the tools or the right mindset or people around me to talk about it with, and so I just never talked about it. Like I just accepted it, you know. And because my mom's not very my mom doesn't really know how to like handle all these things, so a big part of like the separation between my parents, my sister and I had to step in to help her. So it was kind of like stepping up into that role to support my mom through it, but at the same time, who's supporting me? You know, like who is helping me to heal from this trauma? It's kind of like, okay, this trauma you put aside first because it's more important to help your mom first. Like this is the problem on hand. This is the issue that needs to be resolved now. That your trauma, your emotions, your all these can put aside. You can wait. Right? But then it becomes hard to. Everything is very great because it's like how much of it is feelings from me and how much of it is feelings from my mom that's being projected on me. So it's like, is the anger, the resentment truly what I feel that I have to work through, or is it from my mom and it's being fueled by my mom? And then there's the aspect of what is my dad thinking? Like, wait, what does he want? Like, we don't even communicate, and so the resentment like grew, and it got to the point where it was pretty like, I would say it's not amicable when we talk to each other. And so I made the decision like, well, okay, instead of being not amicable, I'll just not have the conversation. And I became very avoidant, and I like pulled away from my parents a little bit because rather than having conflicts all the time, I removed the conflict by just not being present. You know what I mean? So I became like avoidant,
Okay.
so that I don't have to deal with it. But it doesn't mean that
Is that your attachment style for quite a while, even in your marriage or relationship?
I don't know what are different attachment styles.
There's like anxious, you're constantly gripping onto that thing and then like calling for the person's attention, and then avoiding, you are avoiding the issues and trying not to see, which sounds like maybe there's a mix of both.
I think I'm a mix of both. Because the anxious part like does kick in, but then I know that it doesn't work. So then I like, okay fine, then I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna disappear. Yeah. So I think at that point in time I really didn't have the right tools and mindset to deal with disharmony in general, conflict. And so my relationship with my parents had been very like arm's length for a long time. But it's only like recently where, you know, when I needed help and my parents, like without hesitation, they showed up for me. And also my sister who was there to like bridge the conversations between like my parents and I, to kind of like help everybody understand where we are coming from, like to help me understand where my dad's coming from and my dad understand where I'm coming from, and my mom, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she like mediate the.
But I think it's helpful actually, like in difficult conversations, to have a mediator or someone to facilitate the conversation, just so it doesn't escalate.
Yeah.
That's why we go to like family counselors or therapies also, or go for couples therapy. Like I think that's where all these resources come into play. But in that moment, sometimes like we don't think about all these resources that we can lean into for multiple reasons.
But the thing is also, you know of the term like family counseling, but you don't even know where to start.
That's
it's
true.
like you don't like where do you go? Like let's say right now I want to go for therapy. I would be like, okay, so where do I start? What therapy? Just Google therapy and then what? Like there's so many different forms out there. So I think the education bit is a bit lacking. But we see like there's a rising trend right now, and we see the education bit on like mental health and therapy really climbing quite significantly in the past couple of years, I would say. And it's easier to receive information on these now.
Yes.
But I would say maybe like 6 years, 7 years ago,
Not even
back then, it's like you're on your own and you're left to your own demise too.
Good luck.
That's why like, you know, throwing you in the deep waters and then like, you know, okay, go figure it out, and then like no floaties, no nothing, just go. And then so you end up being in a position where all you're doing is just trying to survive. And if you're in an environment where you're struggling to survive, you can't thrive. You can't make the. That's what I mean. Like, you know, you can't make
everything yourself.
You can't make the best decisions that you can make for yourself, because all you're trying to do is just survive. You're just making decisions to survive this moment.
I think that's why the survival mode was such a huge thing, maybe for the older generation also, right? And then they didn't have the resources that we have now also to
think beyond
surviving.
Correct.
And then it's difficult for them to guide us, or we might think that they don't know how to guide us. Then we don't lean into our parents for support.
Because it doesn't align. Right?
Yes.
There's that misalignment.
Right.
So then there's that bit of educating our parents, right?
Also, now you share with them, you help them be a bit more aware of what's available. And I think it's funny because like you mentioned that you were supporting your parents through their own separation. And then when it came to your own experience, like did you get the support you need also? You know, like where do we go for all these support and resources? But how do you manage like maybe that portion? Because you would be struggling to find whatever could help you go through that journey. And the whole idea of law, not all of us is educated in law, and like how do you deal with all these contracts that you kind of like put your name on?
I think honestly it started off with like having friends who are lawyers, or friends' friend. You know, like people that I guess you somewhat can trust. Then you kind of learn bits and pieces of information from them. But it also took a lot of like making bad decisions to learn from it. Like, oh my god, shouldn't have done that. Like, you know. I feel like when it comes to the law, I'm still very much like not experienced and not. I don't have the full knowledge of things, but I can say that if you have a good lawyer, it makes a world of a difference.
How was your like journey? Okay, let's say maybe like wanting to even take a step to like go through your annulment. Like, where do you go on Google and then research?
So when it was like my parents' divorce, of course my mom was the one fronting it mostly, but kind of not really sure what she's doing, and then we do the figuring out with her together. But for mine, because I made the decision to move forward on my own, I had to figure out what is annulment, how is it done, on what grounds, like. And I first heard of it from my best friend. Like she told me her colleague went through it, and I was like, oh my god, what is this thing? And that was how I first got to know of it. And then I went to, I think I can't remember exactly what I did, but I feel like I probably Googled, and I did see that Aware Singapore had they had lawyers that do pro bono consultation with them. So basically, of course, when it comes to like going into the whole annulment thing, like where do you even begin? You don't know anything about it, and you need advice from lawyers. And I can tell you, I tried to walk into a random law firm to ask about it, and like within 10 minutes, like they just shut me out, and then like they say like, yeah, sorry, can't help you. So yeah, in like 10 minutes, like not even 5 minutes maybe. So I was like, oh my god, they didn't tell me anything, they're not gonna tell me anything, they're just like, okay, sorry, no.
That's so disheartening. Like you finally make the choice to want to step out of the situation, and then the first lawyer you go to is like, cannot help.
Yeah, but then when I went to Aware, basically when I Facebook messaged them, when I had a Facebook group, so they said that okay, basically I think they will look through your income level, whether you're represented by any lawyer so far, and this that, and then they will give you support if you're in the lower income margin at that time. So they'll tell you, okay, we have lawyers that can provide you pro bono consultation for half an hour or something like that. So we'll arrange for them to call you at this date and time. And so basically, they called me, and then they were saying, okay, are you ready for the call now? And then they joined the call to the lawyer who gave me like all the insights on how it's done, what's the expected timeline, like what to expect basically from the whole entire proceeding, how like the different grounds. So basically it's like a quick overview, like a crash course kind of, so that you're not going in blind, right? And then afterwards, when I was opening up to like friends and I talked to people, then I started realizing there are so many people out there who know what this thing is, and they've been through it themselves, or their friends have been through it, or their colleagues, or their sibling, or like. And I was like, where are all these people when I was trying to figure out what this annulment thing is? And I had a friend who personally went through it, and then he was like, I can link you up with my lawyer, and you can just speak to her. She did a good job for us, and I think she can help you through this. So that lawyer was kind enough to also hop on a call with me for free for about like half an hour, and so I got like I got a pretty good idea from her and also from Aware Singapore. Yeah, so I think that's the thing, when you kind of speak up and ask for help. Yeah, the help is actually always around.
Wow.
Because more people go through them silently than you know.
Yeah, and it's so funny because like we try to figure this out on our own, and then we don't realize that we need to like just open our mouth and ask for help. And like maybe hopefully it lands on the right person, and the person will have the information that can.
Because it's not something that people go around talking about, and I don't understand why. Because the thing is, people talk about like divorce and like all these things, oh, you said annulment, a lot of people are like, what is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and but the thing is, I take a stone and I throw it, right? I can guarantee you somebody knows someone at least who has gone through an annulment. Ever since like I kind of like shared about this experience, I've had at least 5, 6, 7 people who's been like, oh yeah, I know, like my friend, my this, my that.
What?
And then like people start DMing me and oh, I'm going through this myself, like I'm struggling with the same, or like about to get married, but then basically we're in the position that I was, and they are asking me for advice, and I find that people are asking for advice in this way to a stranger on the internet because they're not receiving the support that they need.
Or they don't get to ask.
Correct. And the thing is, if they have the resources that they need within like at their fingertips, they wouldn't reach out like that to ask you for help. And I just think that nobody is talking enough about this annulment thing, and it's a law in place to protect, I guess to protect women, to protect like also people who make the decision to get married younger from like from going down a marriage that might not be for them. Yeah. I mean, of course, the law is like the grounds for annulment to be approved. There are a few different grounds, and they are a little bit dated because I guess the law was created like back in the day, and it revolved around the sanctity of the marriage, the function of a marriage, and the function of a marriage is to have kids, to build a family, and so I can understand why the law was created like that. But I also feel like in today's day and age, the reasons why people want to get out of marriage is beyond just reasons revolving around like starting a family.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, for example, it's like, I got married and I found out that my partner actually cannot conceive.
Yeah.
Then you're allowed to. That's one of the grounds or something like that. But that's a very, you know what I mean? It's a very dated.
Now it's like we need to BTO 6 years before the flat is ready, and then we made a decision at the point where a lot of changes happen within that 6 years.
Yeah.
There's so many other things in
Like the person that you were when you made that choice to have the
different.
video. Yeah, it's an entirely different person that you are right now. When you have finally when you finally start to figure out a little bit about who you are. Because it's an entirely different person, an entirely different self. And the self that you found out about you may not want that anymore. Right?
Things change along the way, and life happens.
Yeah.
And you realize new things about yourself every time you're with a partner, right?
Actually, I think that's the thing about healing also. When you heal, you learn so much about yourself. And each time you choose to heal, you learn so much more than if you choose to turn a blind eye to it and choose to look away.
And that's the first, step of like reclaiming back your own power and taking accountability of your life, which is a freaking scary step for everyone, because like you have to shred off like expectations people have of you or the path that you've led, and they would be thinking like, oh, you're already on this path, like it seemed to work out, like how come?
Which is kind of what people ask me, like, if you know that you didn't want to get married, then why do you still go through with it? And I asked them that I said, yes, you can ask me this now and it makes perfect sense. But if we're in that moment, at that point in time, if you were in my position, can you just, without batting an eyelid, without hesitation, just say, okay, yeah, I'll walk away right now.
Drop your deposit.
Which, you know what I mean? Like, on hindsight, yes, it's 2020 on hindsight. Like, everything makes sense. But back then, even if, let's say, I tell you, oh, I don't want to get married, can you bring yourself to tell me, they just walk away?
It's hard for someone to say.
You wouldn't give the advice, you wouldn't have this mindset back then if I would ask you that than you would have right now. It's not
If after everything played out, then they will say, then you shouldn't have done that.
correct.
But it's really like in that moment, if everyone were to hear you beat you already, your wedding's gonna happen. They're gonna be like, why are you questioning? No, like you doubting, like it's the pre-wedding jitters or whatever they wanna say.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think. I mean, it's easy for people. Even the way like, okay, so it's funny because like you mentioned the part where annulment is not spoken of enough, but it's happening so much, and the way the media even like bite down on the whole thing was just like, hi guys, this is a lot more normal than it is being portrayed over here. Don't make it gossip, right? Like what and what's the point of you guys sharing this news? Are you even educating people on it? Are you making it elevating, or is it just pure? I don't know. Like, what's your intention in just relaying this news? How is it helping other people? Right? That portion is lacking. I think sometimes in the media, which is very frustrating. If you have an outlet that can be helping people, why are you not using it? If let's say you want to use this as a case study, let's say, then make full use of it to educate the public. Yeah, and then more people will know what to do when the time comes.
Like it's more useful for people to know that annulment is an option and this is the process and this is where you can get help. Than to know the gossips behind the separation.
The stupid
Like
small
it's
stuff that don't
what
matter.
does it serve? What purpose does it serve?
Nothing at all beyond like avoiding your own life. Yeah, you seek entertainment because you don't want to deal with your own life. You're probably in like situations that are way worse. 3 kids, you know something, I don't know. Just kidding. But you know, like it's true, like people you're on a career path, you don't even like, you're with a partner that you keep psyching yourself into thinking that you're okay with and like, oh, compromise ma. But like, are you truly like working on your shit? Why are you into other people's marriage? Why are you into deal with your own problems? We don't think enough about all these things. I think that's the part that's like kind of lacking also, right?
I mean, I think it's just with so many people going through this together, why shouldn't we help each other, right?
Yeah.
It's like if you're struggling to go through this situation and you feel so alone, doesn't it help so much more to know that you're actually not alone? Dude, there's like thousands of people who are doing the same thing as you or who have gone through the same as what you have, and they've come out on the other end perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Because when you go through something like that, you can't be certain or you can't bring yourself to believe that everything will be fine at the end of it.
It's like, why so hush and gossipy about it even?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. With all these things that you figured out and realized, what are you then excited about? Because there are huge changes that have happened for you till date, right? And I feel like I should check the camera to see if it's recording. I don't know why I feel anxious about that. Yes, it is. Okay.
Oh my god, imagine it's not rolling. Oh my god!
I will cry, but it was such a good conversation. My darling. Okay. Yes. So what are you like excited about? Because you found yourself through this journey, and like clearly a lot of growth has happened for you, and now you're in a space where maybe you can start to thrive, or you've been working on thriving instead of surviving.
I think I don't have a very clear answer to this question yet because everything is still kind of like hazy to me when I try and figure out like my path in this spirituality like realm, right? Like, but I do find a huge sense of purpose in helping others go through the struggles that they're experiencing, whether or not it's a shared struggle or shared experience that I've also had. But it's the feeling of knowing that it's not easy, but that I want them to know that there is always a way out. There is always another perspective. You just haven't found it yet. You know? Because I've been in those positions where I feel like I feel so helpless. I feel like there is no way out. I feel like I'm trapped and stuck. And there are so many people who feel the same, no matter what struggles that they're going through. The sense of feeling stuck and trapped and feeling like they have no other option. I know how that feels, and I came out of that on the other side, and I'm so much happier than how I was. I'm much, despite everything that I have had to go through, I'm much, much happier now than I ever used to be. And I want people to know that I know what it feels like to think that you have no options, but also to share a different perspective that they might not have seen the situation from, because there is always a way to get out of the situation. There is always a way, and I don't want them to feel like they're trapped in their situation where it will, and believe that that is how it's going to be forever. So I am still trying to figure out how I can best share my perspectives or to help like guide others. But I mean, like on IG, whenever people ask me stuff in DMs and all that, I always try my best to answer in a very thought out manner, because I really feel for them. I would say I really feel for them. I'm exploring different forms of healing because, like I said earlier, because I think through healing you understand so much about yourself, and you understand that you are much more than your mind allows you to be, right? And I have explored a lot of different modalities, but I'm pretty excited about learning the Tibetan singing bowl, because I wanna like, I mean, I've gone for like classes where like just attending sessions, and I was like, wow, I love this thing. Like, what is this? And it got me very intrigued to find out more about it. Like, what is this? What's the story behind this, and how does it help us? And I guess to kind of weave all these together into like a healing journey for not just myself but also for others, like to guide them out of the struggles that they have. Yeah, so like when you talk about different modalities, there's so many that I've tried, and I feel like I don't know which is the one that I 100% want to focus on yet, but it could be like a mix of different things. And like tarot card is like one of the things that I started like practicing more, because after I learned from your class, right, I started like practicing for myself, for my partner, for my friends, and then I was like, oh, it's pretty accurate. I was like, and the thing is, people want to hear it.
Yeah.
And if they want to hear it, right, like I believe that the delivery of that message serves to help them and guide them through the struggles that they have. And it's also aligned with what I want to do, even though I don't 100% know what exactly I'm doing yet, but I just know that that is the purpose that I want to fulfill. And yeah, and this is something that I can do no matter where I am. I can reach out to, like this is something that I can do and reach everybody around the world, because it's like doing things online and stuff like that, like readings, like coaching, like you know, just different types of therapy. You're not bound to the space that you have anymore. You can reach so much further beyond like your own circle. And because I'm planning to move to LA,
It's exciting.
yes, it's very exciting, but I'm also very nervous about it. But yeah, because I'm moving there, I do see that this spirituality and healing scene is a very big scene over there.
Perfect.
I can learn a lot there, but at the same time, the market is so much bigger there. People are more receptive to it. People are more actively searching for these modalities and resources, and if I have if I have all these resources, and if I've learned all the lessons that I've learned and I've experienced all of that, I would like to believe that I didn't go through all this shit just to stay in shit, right?
Yeah.
You know, you go through all this shit so that you can come out of it and help others through theirs too. Because we are not all blessed with the same tools and experience and knowledge to get through what we got through. You know, maybe other people who are struggling, they don't have they don't have the resources to go to India for a month, for example, right? But I did, and what I learned there, I would like to bring to others.
Share it.
Yeah.
So everyone can be elevated together.
Yeah.
I know. I'm very excited for you actually, like when you shared about it, because like potential possibilities and the whole idea of it, and it takes courage to want to step into that space, and you finally have that a lot more confidence to kind of like inch into it, right? Like compared to maybe like a few years back.
Yeah. True. Can I give myself credit?
Yeah, correct. Let's celebrate your freaking success, no? Like, and this is something that you fought for yourself from the moment you decided to go to India and figure shit out for yourself, which is a fucking big step lah. After all you've been through, and it's easy for people to be like, no, gossip, but then like, hey, this is all the shit that you are a real person. You're not just a freaking Instagram page, you know, like you're way beyond that, and people tend to forget that. And I love that you have this story that I'm sure will inspire a lot of people who watch this video.
I mean, well, at least I hope that it helps people who feel like they need answers in their own situation, you know. Even if it doesn't give the answers, at least it gives that direction of where they can.
New perspective.
Yeah. I feel like we may not always have solutions for each other, but we always have a different perspective for each other, and the new perspectives, the different perspective, can really be the answer that you need.
Yeah, I love that. And maybe to inch into the closing off of this very beautiful session, what's one thing you wish to be remembered by? Because death is the only thing that we're certain about. We don't know when it's gonna happen. How do you wish to be remembered? What's one thing you would like to share with the world? A message.
Oh, it is so hard.
I feel like we have the answers, but we usually don't take time to put it into words.
I think, I guess to the people around me or who have interacted with me, I would hope that they would remember me as home with me, because you know I got a tattoo of a lighthouse, because I want people around me to feel like they're coming home to me. I want to feel like home to the people around me. Yeah. And a message to everyone that I would like to leave. This is a hard one. I think we are all more similar than we are different, but we just choose to see the differences and ignore the similarity.
It's so true.
Yeah, it's true, because it's easier to see the differences.
When the actual thing that brings in harmony and support is us seeing the similarities, no matter how different our situation is. Yeah. Why I stand for it. I love it. Thank you so much for being so brave and vulnerable in all your shares. And I'm sure this will help a lot of people listening. Thank you for being you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Oh my God.
You're so brave, man. You know, like from the first day I meet you until now, like the change is crazy. So fucking brave. Okay, no more. End of episode. The rest is our conversation. Done.